Hank, you've been going 1,000 miles an hour. Big recruiting weekend, official visit weekend for the Horns. Let's get into it because they've been picking up commitments in the 2026 class. 2026 class. They got two biggins on the defensive line. This makes me happy. Dylan Berryman and Corey Wells.
Yeah.
Tell me about these fine fellows.
Yeah, I mean, that's a good way to get your defensive line class started. Dylan Berryman, people question his size a little bit, but I can say from
315.
Yeah. People think he's 6'2" is generous. But still, I mean, like this kid, he's just a tank. You see the pictures of him. He camped at Texas last summer, got the offer from Kenny Baker. And at that point, it was kind of a Texas LSU thing. He's from Monroe, Louisiana. We thought that was going to be a Texas LSU battle. Fast forward to January, Bo Davis leaves LSU. And that kind of opened the door for Texas to start trending there a little bit more for him. And then by the time it came down to him visiting last weekend for his official, Purdue was the other school in the play. So you don't see that a lot, Texas versus Purdue. But, we felt pretty confident, most of this year that he was going to end up at Texas. And I can say, I saw him last summer when he camped to Sunday when we saw him and Friday when we saw him at his official visit. He's gotten noticeably bigger. I think 6'2" is pretty accurate. Just a thick kid. He's got long arms. He's going to be a problem, just immovable, I think is the best way to describe him. So I think that's a really big get. And then Corey Wells, another kid they go out of state for in that Southeast, that region, Mississippi. He's from Petal, Mississippi, 6'5", 300 pounds. So he's got, the size you look for. Really good get off, really good motor. But he was a late add to the official visitors list. So he visited back in the spring on an unofficial. We thought he'd get back for an official, but it just wasn't clear when. Last Wednesday, he decided to come out. And at that point, it was kind of like an Ole Miss Auburn thing with him. He gets on campus for an official, falls in love with Texas, and commits. And so, I talked to his coach yesterday at Petal High School, who's coached some really good players over his career. And, he was saying he's one of the best he has. He does, he puts in all the little things you got to do to get better. And he's a good leader as well. So, but I will say that, anytime from covering Alabama for 8 years, Mississippi recruitments are wild. If you beat out Mississippi or Ole Miss or Mississippi State on a kid, earlier in the cycle, it's usually still going to come down to trying to hang on to them, with Ole Miss and Mississippi State trying to flip them late. So not saying that's going to happen with Corey Wells. I wouldn't be surprised, if we still see Ole Miss, really push to try and flip him. I've just seen countless recruitments from kids in Mississippi that really come down to the wire come December or, signing day. So, but right now, celebrate it. It's a really big get. He's an impressive kid, top 247 player that I know Texas is thrilled to have.
Well, and it looks like you had Kenny Baker as the lead recruiter on Wells, and then you had Alan Clark and Kenny Baker reeling in Dylan Berryman, the kid from Monroe who's a tank.
Yeah. Obviously, Kenny Baker's, last summer we were, the whole, all the message boards were questioning, can he recruit here? What are we doing? They're missing on a few guys. We see the class they ended up signing, then the portal haul they ended up bringing in. And now we're seeing, kind of the fruits of his labor here as well. So Kenny Baker, I think his resume speaks for itself. Alan Clark, I don't think, a lot of people didn't know too much about him when he joined the staff. He came from Ohio State. He's a really young guy. I think he's 25 or 26. But he's, I'm not ready to, give him this title yet, but in terms of the recruiter on the staff now, he's trending more towards the Tashard choice of this staff now, where when he's involved, Texas is really trending and doing well with kids. And so, kids love him. Obviously he's younger. He can relate to them a little bit more. But he's just relentless on the recruiting trail. You see him on Twitter all the time. he's working these guys. He's going out of his position and working on guys that aren't edge rushers. Like he's everywhere. And, to have him in Louisiana too, after you lose Terry Joseph to the Saints, who had those, Louisiana ties, that's big as well because a lot of these kids know him. So, a guy like Lamar Brown, the 5-star defensive lineman, I mean, Alan Clark is leading the charge there. And, he's kind of single-handedly like really pulled Texas kind of to the forefront of that recruitment at this point in time, with Texas A&M and LSU in Miami. So really positive things we're hearing about him. And we're kind of starting to see it, reflect on the recruiting trail.
That's huge.
Yeah.
That's huge. And Alan Clark is the one who worked with Daniil Hunter of the Texans, who's a sack machine.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead, Zay.
Yeah, Daniil Hunter just got paid too. Hank, talk about Lamar Brown a little bit, because that dude from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, like if LSU doesn't get him, I don't know what's going on. But like you said, Alan Clark and Kenny Baker, they're doing their thing. Talk about Brown a little bit and how good he is.
Yeah, he's a stud. He's like a two-way player. Every school's recruiting him for defensive line now. There was a time where he was like a top 50 offensive lineman. But, I think he fits more of the profile of a defensive lineman, and, we have him in the 5-star range. So he's certainly talented. He's got the size. He looks great in person. We got to see him at the airport last weekend when he was leaving and when he got there. But yeah, this was a recruitment where Alan Clark comes on the staff, and then we really see Texas start to get more involved in this recruitment. They liked him. They'd already offered him, but it wasn't, we didn't see a huge, connection or push or, whatever you want to call it with him at that point in time. Then Alan Clark comes. He happens to be the coach that first offered Lamar Brown when he was at Southern, back when Lamar was in 8th grade. And then we talked to Lamar on Sunday when he left. He said he's known Alan Clark since he was like 8. So, I mean, they go way back. He said he's the coach he's closest with in this whole recruiting process, which is saying a lot considering, every coach in America would like to sign a guy like Lamar Brown. And so, Alan Clark has them in there with him, with Lamar Brown, and some interesting stuff. Like, I mean, you can read the update he gave us, or the interview he gave us after his official, he was saying, he had never been to Austin before. And he was like, Austin doesn't seem like it should be in the state of Texas. Like he was like, I got a lot of Cali vibes out here. He was saying that in a good way. Some people might be like, oh my gosh, but no, but he really liked Austin. He spent time with Justice Terry. Obviously a guy that's kind of in his shoes in terms of like everyone thought he was going one place. He went to the other place. And he spent time with Colin Simmons as well. So interesting development there coming out of that visit is that he is looking at coming back next week, the 18th and 19th, for an unofficial visit because he wants to be in Austin a little bit more. So I don't think you can look at that anything other than a positive with where Texas. I think Texas is, right there at the top for him. LSU, obviously, if there's a kid you're going to designate NIL resources to, that's probably the kid that's in like 5 minutes from your campus that, defensive lineman in the SEC. So I think they're still going to be a tough out. A&M obviously is going to go all out for him. They're hosting him this weekend. And of course, Miami's involved too. They got him on campus at the end of May for the official visit. So yeah, if he gets back to campus next week for that unofficial, he's supposed to see LSU next weekend, like the last trip before the dead period, before he decides on July 10th. But I would imagine LSU will do everything they can to make that visit still happen. But, 2 visits to Texas in 2 weeks prior, just weeks before a decision, I think things are starting to look up for Texas and Lamar Brown.
Hank, Cohen Brown, wide receiver, Waxahachie. Anytime a wide receiver commits to Texas, based on the pedigree of Steve Sarkisian and his offense, we all perk up. Yeah. Give us your take on Cohen Brown.
Yeah, I think he's a stud. Obviously, I think everyone was like, oh, they're 3 stars, so they see the 3 stars and immediately think he's not that good. But I mean, you watch his tape. He's a kid that he's played mostly in the slot, but he also plays running back for them, and he's like out there throwing cut blocks and like getting involved and putting his body on the line. But just a really steady receiver, runs good routes. He has verified speed. I think he's like 10.6 in the 100. And so he's I think he kind of fits that DeAndre Moore kind of role in terms of what he could do at Texas. But I think Texas, I think I'm never going to question a Chris Jackson, Steve Sarkisian wide receiver take because, those guys, have the track record and, getting the good ones on their team. You look at what they've already brought in, they have probably a little bit more of a luxury with this class in terms of being able to take some developmental guys because you're probably going to have Wingo Moore and we'll see if DeAndre Moore could have a season where he goes pro, but most likely you're going to have Wingo, DeAndre Moore, Emmett Mosley back going into 2026. So, this recruiting cycle makes more sense. You could take a guy like Chris Stewart. You could take a guy like Cohen Brown that might need a few years or, a year or two before they're ready to really contribute. But I like him. He plays in a tough district. He looks solid on film. Like I said, he's got that positional versatility. We saw Ryan Wingo do a little running back in high school. He's got, he's a strong kid. You can catch in traffic. So I think it's a nice take.
Yeah, Hank, 3 wide receivers in this class already. You got Bishop, you got Stewart, and you got Brown now. Do you think that's it as far as wide receivers go in this 2026 class, or do you think they're still out in the hunt for some more guys, maybe trying to get some flips in there?
Yeah, I don't think they're done because obviously, Bishop, you can probably classify more as an athlete. Obviously, he can play both ways at Texas, but there's still guys they want. First comes to mind is Caden Finley, the 4-star wide receiver from Aledo, Jermichael Finley's son. So you got the Texas legacy ties there. He'll be on campus next week for his official. I think it's next week. All these visits run together now. Let me look at my schedule. Caden Finley is the 20th. Yes. So Caden.
What do y'all
Finley,
have him ranked on 24/7?
What's
ranked?
that?
What do y'all have him ranked?
I think we have him in the. I want to say we have him in the top 100. Let's see. Sorry. Top 247. Number 33 wide receiver, 216 overall, but the composite has him number 14 at wide receiver and 110 overall. So but he's a playmaker. Texas loves him. They're going head to head with Notre Dame trying to get him. Obviously Notre Dame is selling that Jaden Greathouse that role for him. We've seen him kind of really excel from Westlake. So yeah, we'll see what happens
right
there.
At the end.
Yeah. But they really like Caden Finley. He's a top target. This weekend is an interesting one. Jabari Mack, who's stud wide receiver, plays at Destrehan High School, which is the same high school where Justin Jefferson went in Louisiana. Committed to LSU, but still expected to be at Texas. That's one Texas would, if they were going to flip somebody, that's one they would love to flip. We saw some developments this week at the wide receiver position outside of just Cohen Brown committing. Mason James in Texas, that's not going to happen. He's the 4-star receiver from Norman. He's that visit is off to Texas this week, and it looks like he's probably going to commit to Washington. That's where the crystal ball is trending for him right now.
He's from Norman, Oklahoma.
Norman, Oklahoma, yeah. And there's some buzz that Oklahoma's not actually pushing for him. You can read that how you want. But looks like Washington's in a good spot for him. I know Mizzou's the other one, but doesn't look like Texas is going to push there anymore with Cohen Brown committed. And then another development this past weekend was Aaron Gregory, who's the stud wide receiver from Georgia. He's committed to Texas A&M. They had him on campus for his official, and they got him to shut it down. So obviously, what does that mean in June, shutting a recruitment down? I mean, talk to us in December, late November. You never know. But for now, he's not going to officially visit Texas this weekend, which was he was scheduled to do. So, and then of course you can't not mention Jalen Lott, who's similar in that Jermaine Bishop role, in that he can play both ways, elite at wide receiver, elite at cornerback. He's a guy Texas is squaring off with Oregon. That's been kind of well known that Oregon's trending for him. USC hosted him this past weekend and made a move for him. So he's also a Texas legacy, son of James Lott. His mom Faye played basketball at Texas, so he's got all the Texas ties. But should be noted his sister runs track at USC, so he's got some ties elsewhere too. So that's something to watch. But yeah, no, I don't think they're done at wide receiver. I think they still want to sign at least an out-of-state kid and maybe one more after that with a guy like Caden Finley potentially.
Well, and Hank, it looks like Jeff Banks has recruited his entire special teams battery.
Yeah.
Got him a long snapper, Trot O'Neill. That's a good name. Kicker Jake Collette and punter Mikey Bukowskis.
Yep.
All just committed. Now,
on board.
hopefully these will turn out better than Michael Kern and Will Stone. But anyway, your thoughts?
They got it all done. That was spring eval central for them. They had a kicker they liked in Martin Grammatica's son. I think his name is Gaston.
Wow.
He was supposed to officially visit this weekend, but he committed to South Florida. So South Florida beating Texas for recruits. I'm just kidding. But I mean, he did commit to South Florida. So that visit was off.
Tampa.
Yeah. And so they went back to the drawing board. They found Jake Collette. And when I talked to Jake Collette, he was saying, Jeff Banks described him as a freak kicker. So it was Texas and Army. He only had a visit set to Texas. I think the writing was on the wall for when he visited that he was going to commit, and he committed on Sunday morning. We saw him at the airport, and he's like, "Yeah, I just committed." So pretty simple. He's on board. Trot O'Neill, he got an offer in the spring. Jeff Banks went and watched him snap. He committed like 2 days later from Prestonwood Christian, and then Mikey Bukowskis. That one actually got a little interesting. He was all Texas, and obviously it still is. He's committed now. He committed today. But Clemson offered last week, and he's a big I know, his faith is very important to him. Not to say any school can't, have a good faith base, but it's very well known, Dabo Sweeney's program. And so Clemson kind of made it interesting there for a second, but he decided to go ahead and commit to Texas. So yeah, they got all their guys. And I thought it was interesting with Bukowskis today. Same day he commits, Michael Dixon is now the highest paid punter in NFL history with his contract extension. So good day for punting in the University of Texas.
Yeah. What's the need right now with this 2026 class, Hank? Like, of all the guys that they have already, where do you think Sark and this coaching staff need to go for just getting guys in because they got to fill roster spots at certain positions?
Yeah. I think it's and you can look at the commitments and say, well, they have some guys, but like they need to finish out offensive line. Like this is a class, like there's too many like really, really good players that they need to sign. Like that's a must this cycle. And, I don't think they're going about that lightly. Like Felix Ojo, the 5-star offensive tackle from Mansfield. He's a guy or from Lake Ridge. I'm sorry. He's right there at the top. He canceled his Oklahoma visit for this weekend. So, or for the 20th. So this weekend is the last official visit he has scheduled, unless he schedules something else. So that's a big priority for Texas. They want to get him on board. I would imagine they'll try to get him to commit this weekend. But then, you look beyond that, John Turntine, another elite offensive lineman from North Crowley, a guy they really want. They're battling Texas A&M for. And then a guy that came in this weekend that, I'm just like enamored with because I've never seen him in person, but Malachi Lee.
He's huge.
He's huge. Like when I saw him, like you immediately think Caden Proctor, you think Nick Brooks, like just physically impressive.
He makes Kyle Flood look like a Oompa Loompa.
He said at the visit he was 6'7", 320, and like I believe it. Like I would be shocked if it wasn't. So he looked the part. You can see why Georgia, Alabama, Michigan, Texas, they all like really, really want this kid. And we caught up with him after his visit, and I think he's truly torn. Like I think he's like and it's these 4 schools he's deciding between. So that's his top 4. And I think each school has given him something to think about. He was at Texas this weekend. He said Texas was his first offer too. So I thought that was really interesting. But he was flying back to Hawaii, and he had his whole family. Like there was a baby with them. Like like all his parents. Like they're doing some traveling this summer. They're coming back to Georgia this weekend on an unofficial visit. He already went to Georgia on an official, and then he's going to go. I don't know if he's going to go from Georgia to Michigan and not without going back home to Hawaii, but he has Michigan for that final official visit, June 20th through 22nd. And then Alabama had him the weekend before last. But I mean, schools are pressing for him. I was talking to his dad after the visit, and he actually has like a lot of ties to Texas, being in Hawaii. So his dad worked with Leonga Leifau's dad, and so they're close, or used to work with him. Brandon Baker's uncle is Malachi Lee's trainer, and Brandon Baker hosted Malachi Lee on his official visit. And then his dad was telling me his wife, so Malachi Lee's mom, has a really close friend in the DFW area. She drove down, or the family drove down on Saturday to spend time with Malachi Lee's family. So they got to kind of take part in the festivities as well on the official visit. So, I think, he's leaving home. He's going far away from home regardless of wherever he picks. So, having people he knows he's comfortable with, I think that's a big deal to him. I know Alabama brought in Tua's parents to meet up with them. They know them from, the Hawaiian high school football culture, I think they're all pretty tight knit. They all know each other. So, it's an all out battle for him. I know Texas, they want him. I think there's optimism for each of these schools. So it's hard to, give a pick, but, sorry, I kind of went on a totally, I'm not even answering your question anymore.
No. You like that.
Offensive line obviously is important to them. And then I really think linebacker is something they have to hit on, because they haven't really signed a big linebackers class. And it could come to the point where, maybe they just decide to go in the portal again if they miss on some of these guys. Like this weekend's big. They have Xavier Griffin, the 5-star linebacker from Georgia, and Braden Roush, another top-ranked linebacker from Georgia as well. They're both going to be in. Texas would love to get both of them. They want to get at least one of them. But those are two big-time targets as well. And then you got in-state guys like Kosi Okpala or Calvin Thomas. But I think offensive linebacker position are two spots, that in terms of like the biggest need remaining to finish strong with this class.
So would it be like crazy to think they could get Felix Ojo, John Turntine, and Malachi Lee? And if so, would that do it?
That would be pretty crazy, I think, for all three of them. I think you can make the cases for two, make good cases for two. I don't think they're going to get all three. I think that would be pretty tough to predict. I think Felix Ojo is trending to Texas. I think they're going to get him. And I think the question is, after that, Turntine, and then Lee. And then you got some interior guys like Zayden Crimpin from Prosper or Sam Roseborough, who's going to be on campus next weekend as well. So, they want to load up on the offensive line. So, like, would they take all three? Absolutely. Do all three want to, be in the same class? That's another question. So, it's tough to predict that, but, that'd be like a dream scenario for Texas.
Yeah, Ojo, man, top 5 national recruit. That dude appears to be legit. Would you compare him to Kelvin Banks?
Yeah, I mean he's bigger. I think what I like about Felix Ojo is like he goes out and like earns the spot. Like he's not like, because you'll see him on Twitter like being like, I'm the best offensive tackle in the country, but like he goes to the camps and proves it. Like he's not like just saying that and then just like staying home. Like he wants to go and show why. So that's what I really like about him. He's athletic. He plays basketball as well. And he's a really good kid. Like, again, he just the frame, he's athletic, he can bend. He's just kind of like your prototypical offensive left tackle. So, I think he's big time. I think he could play early for sure, like Kelvin Banks.
That's good stuff. That's good stuff right there, Hank. Hank, we can't wait to talk again next week. See what this next round of visits brings.
Yeah, it'll be wild. They're right now they're standing. So 13 kids visited last weekend. 2 are already committed entering the weekend. 5 of the 11 uncommitted have since committed to Texas. And I'm not even sure they're done with those guys. Like there's Jamarian Carlton. We talked about Lamar Brown. Even Xavier Crowell, the running back. Like this is like when we look back at this class, I think this June 6th through 8th weekend could be, kind of the foundation of how this class came together. But yeah, we'll see. With Ojo this weekend, they've got Crimpin. I'm sorry, I'm looking at my 20th list. Other guys this weekend are the linebackers, Hezzy Kent, the tight end from Georgia, Samari Matthews, who I could see in this class at cornerback, Damari Simeon, edge rusher from Georgia, I could see in this. Or I'm sorry, Drake Quinn, the edge rusher from Georgia, I could see in this class. So, these kids aren't waiting until July. It seems like they're popping now. So
yeah,
it's been busy.